Pablo Escobar was one of the most notorious criminals in modern history. At the height of his power, his organization controlled up to 80% of the global cocaine trade, turning him into one of the richest men on the planet and generating tens of millions of dollars every single day. Escobar bribed politicians, silenced judges, and ordered the killing of anyone who stood in his way, including police officers, journalists, and innocent civilians. Entire cities lived in fear. Bombings, assassinations, and terror became part of everyday life in Colombia. And yet, in the poorest neighborhoods, Pablo Escobar was remembered very differently. To many, he was a benefactor, a man who built houses, funded schools, and provided money to families abandoned by the state. Some called him a hero, others called him a monster. So, who was Pablo Escobar really? A ruthless drug lord driven by greed and violence? Or a calculating manipulator who used charity as a weapon? How did a boy from a provincial city rise to dominate an entire country and become known as the king of cocaine? And what price did Colombia pay for the rise of his empire? Pablo Escobar was born in a small town in Colombia to a modest family. His early years were marked by poverty, and he quickly learned that life could be harsh and unfair. His parents worked hard to provide for the family, but resources were limited, and young Pablo had to find his own ways to survive. School was never his strong suit. Struggling academically and feeling constrained by formal education, he eventually dropped out. Instead of following the traditional path, Pablo sought opportunities outside the law. His intelligence and determination became apparent as he found ways to make money, even if those ways were illegal. His first criminal activities were relatively small: petty theft, shoplifting, and smuggling goods. Over time, he moved into more serious offenses, including extortion and racketeering. Eventually, this path led him to commit his first murder, marking the moment when his criminal life took a darker turn. Despite these early crimes, Pablo was careful to cultivate a public image that would earn him support from local communities. He often helped the poor, donated money to families, and invested in small projects that improved local infrastructure. This earned him admiration from some residents, who began to see him as a modern-day Robin Hood, a man who, in their eyes, shared wealth and offered protection, even while committing acts of extreme violence. These formative years revealed the duality that would define Escobar's life, a mix of cunning ambition, strategic generosity, and ruthless criminality. They show a young man shaped by poverty, driven by opportunity, and determined to rise above his circumstances, no matter the cost. In the 1970s, demand for cocaine in the United States began to skyrocket. Pablo Escobar recognized a massive opportunity. With his experience in smuggling and racketeering, he started small, moving drugs across the border, learning the logistics, and building connections. His first major arrest came in 1976, a turning point that taught him the risks of the business and the importance of control and intimidation. Around this time, he adopted a ruthless principle that would define his operations: silver or lead, a choice offered to anyone who opposed him. Accept his bribe or face deadly consequences. Escobar's ambition grew quickly. He moved from being a middleman, simply transporting drugs, to becoming a producer himself, controlling not only the import, but also the production and distribution chains. This transition allowed him to maximize profits, expand influence, and establish a level of power that few could challenge. By understanding both the demand and the risk, Escobar built the foundation of a business empire that would soon dominate the international cocaine market. He combined street-level tactics with strategic planning, showing a rare mix of criminal audacity and business acumen. As Escobar's influence and profits grew, he moved to formalize his operations by establishing the Medellín Cartel. This organization brought together several major players in the Colombian drug trade, each with specialized roles: logistics, production, security, and distribution. The cartel developed a strict hierarchy, with Escobar at the top as the undisputed leader. Loyalty was enforced with a combination of wealth, power, and fear. They revolutionized smuggling methods. Small planes became routine, flying hundreds of kilograms of cocaine across borders. Large shipments were hidden in ships and containers, while inventive methods included submarines and semi-submersible vessels. Every method was carefully planned to evade authorities and maximize profits. Their logistical skill was unmatched. Routes were mapped meticulously, corrupt officials were bribed, and contingency plans were always in place. The Medellín Cartel became not just a criminal organization, but a sophisticated enterprise capable of operating on a global scale. At the height of his power, Pablo Escobar was amassing billions of dollars. His wealth allowed him to live in unimaginable luxury, owning multiple mansions, private planes, and even his own personal zoo at Hacienda Nápoles. Exotic animals like elephants, hippos, and giraffes roamed his estates, becoming a symbol of his opulence. Escobar didn't just spend money lavishly. He strategically used it to build influence. He invested in properties, created businesses, and most importantly, gave generously to local communities. By building housing, soccer fields, and schools, he cultivated a public image as a benefactor to the poor, earning the nickname Robin Hood of Medellin. But behind the generosity was always a strategy. Wealth was power. Offshore accounts, hidden cash, and creative methods of laundering money allowed him to stay untouchable for years. Escobar's life of luxury wasn't just indulgence. It was a tool to control and manipulate, ensuring loyalty and fear in equal measure. Pablo Escobar didn't limit his influence to the streets and the drug trade. He also moved into politics. By the early 1980s, he became a member of Colombia's Congress, using his position to gain legitimacy and shield himself from extradition threats to the United States. His political ambitions were part of a calculated strategy, blending fear and philanthropy to maintain control. Escobar's rise in politics coincided with deadly confrontations with rivals and authorities. High-profile murders, including that of Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, highlighted the dangerous consequences of opposing him. Through political influence, Escobar sought protection and power, demonstrating that his empire was not only built on wealth and violence, but also on strategic manipulation of legal and governmental systems. As Escobar's power grew, he declared open war against the Colombian government. His campaign was ruthless, targeting anyone who threatened his empire. Judges, police officers, and government officials were assassinated, creating an atmosphere of terror throughout the country. Escobar's tactics included high-profile attacks like plane bombings and the takeover of judicial buildings, demonstrating that no one was safe. Cities and communities were gripped by fear, as the violence extended beyond rival cartels to innocent civilians. This period marked the peak of Escobar's reign, where his control was enforced through fear, and Colombia itself became a battleground in his quest to protect the drug empire. As pressure from the authorities and rival cartels increased, Escobar's empire began to crumble. The rise of the Cali cartel challenged his dominance, and former allies turned against him. Escobar retreated to his infamous prison, La Catedral, which he had designed himself. But even there, control slipped from his hands. Corruption, betrayals, and the relentless pursuit by the Colombian police weakened his grip. Eventually, his carefully constructed sanctuary became a trap, and attempts to escape highlighted the vulnerability of even the most powerful drug lord. The decline was swift, signaling that no empire, no matter how feared, could last forever. After Escobar's escape from La Catedral, Colombian authorities, with help from international intelligence and rival factions like Los Pepes, launched an intense manhunt. His family became targets, forcing him into constant hiding. Tracking was relentless. Escobar was finally located through a phone call, a mistake that revealed his position. On December 2nd, 1993, Escobar died during a rooftop shootout with the police. The circumstances of his death remain debated, with some suggesting suicide to avoid capture. The once untouchable Kingpin's violent empire came to a dramatic, violent end, leaving Colombia scarred and his cartel fractured. Pablo Escobar's death did not erase the legend of his empire. The Medellín Cartel collapsed, but the effects of his reign are still visible in Colombia today. Some of his wealth was lost, some hidden, fueling myths about hidden treasure. His extravagant lifestyle and the hippos he introduced at Hacienda Nápoles became lasting symbols of excess. These hippos now roam freely, representing the unexpected ecological legacy of his actions. Tourism around sites linked to Escobar has grown, mixing fascination and controversy. His story raises questions about power, morality, and human nature. How much of Escobar's generosity was genuine? Did his actions do more harm than good? Can society ever separate the man from the myth? Even decades later, Escobar's life remains a subject of debate, illustrating the complex intersection of crime, wealth, politics, and legacy.